Hey, Steve Shenbaum here from Game On Nation, and this is the Laugh With podcast, and we are laughing with my buddy, Anthony Baldo. Before we dive in, Anthony, I want to give you credit where credit's due. So Anthony is the executive director at JP Morgan Private Bank. Anthony, I don't want to give it all away, but this guy is so relational, so willing to support others on social media and in person. He's also a somewhat new father, which we'll unpack, and he loves to cook Italian food and have all the kids over so he can be all-time quarterback. But that's all I'm going to do in terms of stealing your thunder. Anthony Baldo, thanks, buddy.
It's great to see you, Steve.
You're awesome. So I want to start like we start all Laugh With podcasts, okay? And we talk. This is the only thing we kind of somewhat tee up, but it's still improv-y, right? But we talk about, if we're going to do Laugh With, we talk about what's brought you some laughter, what's brought you some joy recently in your life. Take it away.
Yeah, I think I'd start with joy. It is a season of life that is absolute joy for me. My son is 2.5, and seeing life through the lens of a 2-year-old child is just so extraordinary. And the happiness that he has and the fun of experiencing life for the first time, it's certainly been such a fun moment, and it ties right into a moment of laughter. So a couple months ago, I bought a Tesla, and nice. I'm still learning all the toys and the tricks of it, and there's some little fun. It's like a computer on wheels. So we were playing around with the toy box in the car this weekend, and my son's sitting on my lap, and there is this feature where you can change the horn. And initially we hit the button and it's like, la cucaracha, no puede caminar. And then he hits the button and it turns into a whoopee cushion.
Yes.
So I never knew about this. And a 2-year-old boy, and maybe everybody thinks it's kind of funny, but what I didn't realize was that I had turned it on as a megaphone. So everything that we were doing was happening outside of the car.
So good.
And my neighbors were coming outside and people were laughing. And I was like, what? Can they really hear this? But I didn't realize that the car turns into a megaphone. And we were laughing so hard. It was a pure moment of joy.
That's exactly what we're looking for, brother. Exactly. That's it. Now I feel like I'm not going to try to one-up you at all because that wouldn't be fair. But I am thinking, mine is car related. But before we get into that, thinking about these Tesla engineers, I have a feeling they thought of this. I have a feeling they had planned that out to be like, hey, let's see if we can get kids and parents to click on some buttons where they see various options, you know?
Yeah.
It's so good. When did you realize, whoa, this was not just an inner monologue, this was an outer monologue, and the sound was permeating throughout the neighborhood?
Well, my wife was in the car with me, and she rolled down the window. She's like, I think people can hear that. Stop. And we were just laughing so hard, but it was just a moment that we were experiencing together. Well, we thought we were experiencing together, but we were actually sharing it with the neighbors.
That's still together. It's just a larger crowd than you had anticipated. Yeah. That's it, brother. And when we talk about Game On and laughter, we want to invite people to realize laughter is not just being the funniest person in the room. It could be just experiencing something that's joyful and humorous with your 2.5-year-old and your wife. So mine, brief, is a car related as well. We have an impractical Jeep. It would be the antithesis of a computer on wheels. It's more like Flintstones, but I love it. It's fun. And there's the Jeep Wave that you give. The Jeep Wave that you give. Two things. Recently, I've gotten in my feelings when I do the Jeep Wave to a Jeep and they don't see it and they don't respond. And my kids are in the car. I take it personally. Like, well, I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. But I've gotten so into like the Jeep Wave that I'll give the Jeep Wave and I won't get the response. And my girls will remind me, I'm not in the Jeep. I'm in our Kia. So I'm overplaying this a lot right now. I'm trying too hard with the Jeep Wave. And even in a car that's not a Jeep. And I'll be like, I can't believe they didn't wave. And my daughter's like, Dad, we're in the Kia. We're not in the Jeep. So anyway, that's my joy, laughter moment. My kids are not 2.5. They're 14 and 11. But
I'm sure they weren't that nice about it either.
No, they weren't. Oh, dude. Dad, stop. You're being so cringe. You're being so cringe. They're right on that one. All right, brother. Let's go into this like, Anthony, you were in Leadership Academy a couple of years ago. You could have taught it. Seriously, you were so humble about taking part in it. You lead well. But I want to talk a little bit about how you shared in Leadership Academy that you play quarterback with the kids in the neighborhood, that you and your wife open up your home to like cook meals. Like that's wild, and also can take up a lot of time. So what's that about, this all-time quarterback, this Italian food cooker in the neighborhood?
So I'll start with the all-time quarterback thing. I've wanted to be a quarterback since I was like 3 years old. One of the first vivid memories of my life was when Scott Norwood missed the field goal to end the Bills Super Bowl. And it was the first moment that heartbreak really set in. But I just
was
had
it
this
wide
passion.
right? It was like wide right.
Oh, yeah. I don't need you to share it.
All my Bills friends are going to be totally triggered. Anyway, continue.
I'm triggered talking about it. This is actually turning into a therapy session.
Get it out. Get it out.
But ever since I was a little kid, I used to wait for my dad to come home from work, and we would throw the football every single day. Yeah. And as time went on, my arm got stronger. I got more into football. The passion grew. Being from Western New York, there really isn't much other than football, the Bills, and I think like that was instilled in me. But I ended up playing football in high school and into college, and it was surely a passion. So as we got into our home, I used to see the kids playing outside. And my wife would see me. She'd be like, "Why don't?" She's like, "You're just looking out the window. Go play with them."
And this is before you had kids.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love that.
My son's 2.5. We moved in nearly 8 years ago. So like this was 6 years in the making. I was like, "Is it creepy?" I was like, "I don't know," but I didn't really take it easy on him either. Like I was, so they're like, "You could really throw the ball well." I was like, it's like a 6-year-old telling you you're doing something well. Yeah, you appreciate that.
Yeah. So is that still going on? You still having these games?
Here and there.
Yeah.
Life has definitely gotten more packed, and my son is 2.5, so I'm kind of waiting on him to get a little bit older to be able to go out and play. But we definitely we host, especially during football season. Any given Sunday, we open our home to whoever wants to come over, and I love to cook, whether it's barbecue, Italian, you name it. I'll cook anything.
I love that. You actually shared that in Leadership Academy. It was interesting. I remember you sharing that early. This was a couple of years ago in this 6-phase program, but you gave permission to other people to start sharing their coins. I remember that because I didn't know you well enough. I knew you and had a lot of respect for you, but I remember when you shared, like my wife and I open up our home and we love to cook Italian food and we welcome everyone in. And it was interesting. Once you shared that, do you remember sort of the effect that had on the rest of the folks sharing coins?
Yeah, it was unlikely friends in that room. And I think our group it was vast differences and very diverse, from ages to demographics to career paths.
Yeah.
Everybody was so different. And, we started as strangers, we left as friends, and people that I still respect a ton and that I admire in the community.
I love that. So you're in this finance space, but you're wildly relational. And I'm not saying everyone in the finance space is transactional, but you have this sort of tension between being relational and also needing to be transactional. And so how do you balance that in your role at JP Morgan?
It's challenging, but people just want to know that they're going to be okay. And
I have to stop for a second. Isn't that wild? Like when it gets down to it, with all the Excel spreadsheets, at the end of the day, I could not agree with you more. People want to know that they're going to be okay.
And I work with multi-generationally wealthy families. So they want to make sure that their kids and their grandkids are going to be okay. And what does that mean? What is okay? Just because you have extra zeros at the end of your bank account, sometimes 2, 3 more than you'd normally think of when you think about wealth, that could create complexity and challenges. I always tell people, like, my role is to make sure that your blessing doesn't turn into your family's curse.
That's totally going to make a clip, Anthony. Katie, that was really good. Can you keep me in the shot just so I'm involved in this conversation? Say that again and then talk a little bit about where that came from for you. And how do you convey that verbally, but also through action? That's really a powerful, not just phrase, but mission.
Yeah, it's kind of been the cornerstone of how I've built my practice, is making sure that their blessing doesn't turn into their family's curse. Mm-hmm. Because we've all seen wealth handled effectively or not. Mm-hmm. And the repercussions of that can be that you handle your wealth just fine. You have money silence, and then your children or grown-ups at that point, they come into this wealth and they don't know how to handle it. And it's an experience that can be really challenging for families to navigate. And when I think about people's intent of their wealth and what they want to accomplish in life, typically it's protecting their family. It is building memories. It's creating legacy and trying to not pay an exorbitant amount of taxes.
When you meet with a family, it's kind of finding this connection between, Anthony, what you're doing and what we're doing in Game On. And I know it's there. It's not going to be a hard connect. But when you meet with a family, really we're not going to go into details on each family, but do you have kind of a pre-assessment? Do you have sort of a series of things that you're looking for? Like you said, definition of what success means. What are their goals and aspirations? Do you have kind of just like a doctor would come in and say, hey, let's get a baseline before we kind of work together?
Yeah, I think about it threefold. I want to understand the intent of their wealth, and that's comprised of things that they care about, things that they worry about, and things that they dream about. And when I put those together, it flows into a conversation, but so much of the time, the things that they share that are most important to them aren't necessarily in alignment with how they have their estate structured. So I think that is the greatest challenge that families face, is like taking all of what they care about, what they dream about, what they worry about, and then being able to put that into a document to make sure that they're protecting their family's legacy.
Where did that come? Where did that come from? Care about, dream about, worry about. As you said it, I'm just like thinking, oh, can that be an acronym? That's really, really good. And it's structured so then you can actually have some abstract interaction, but the structure comes first. So care about, dream about, worry about. In that order?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did that come from? Was that a mentor that shared that with you? Did you kind of create that on your own? Because it's a really nice start.
It's been probably 10 years I've been utilizing that framework. I think I heard it in the training. But at the time, I wasn't necessarily working with multi-generationally wealthy families. What I've found, though, is it doesn't matter what level of wealth you have. You still have things that you care about. You still have things that you worry about, and you still have things that you dream about. Those things might look just a little bit different, for families depending on the size of their wealth. But ultimately, we all just want to make sure that our families are okay.
Yeah. Money's emotional.
Yeah.
Right? People think it's all just transactional. Like, money's emotional. And I'm sure there's times, and again, we're not going to get in any detail and break any like confidentiality agreement, but like, I'm sure there's times where you just have to be in listen mode. Yeah?
Most of it.
Yeah. You think like financial advisor, like wealth manager, I want to use terms that are not minimizing, helping estate plan. People think, my side, people that aren't like focusing on the finance all the time, think it's all about building wealth and restructuring your tax shelter, when really, I'm sure a lot of it is just being present and listening.
Yeah. There was this leadership framework that we coached to years ago, and it couldn't remain more true. And at the time I had 150 employees and I was in leadership over the retail bank. Now as a wealth manager, it remains true, but there's multiple different levels of learning. There's listening to respond, and there's listening to understand. And listening to respond, you're engaged in the conversation. But it would be like you saying, Anthony, I'm going to Italy this week. And I would say, oh my goodness, I love Italy. I've been there 3 times. It's one of my passions. And that's listening to respond. Listening to understand would say, Steve, tell me more about your trip.
Yeah.
I want to understand where you're going. Like, what landmarks are you trying to see? What food are you trying to eat? What geographies? And then ultimately, you're gonna know that I'm passionate about that. And you're going to say, have you been there? And it's going to give me the opportunity to be able to share that, but allow you to expose yourself and give that feedback around, what's most important to you, and identify that through my passion.
I love it. And by the way, I'm totally acknowledging when you were doing that, I'm like, don't interrupt Anthony, because we're talking about listening. But I think what I'm hearing is, let's start with listening to understand. You can get to listen to respond, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny when you talk about listening to respond, which I do because I'm passionate, and my excitement can all of a sudden seem like I'm jumping in. But I'll tell you, if you listen to understand, what you'll find is you're not one-upping one another. If you say to your example, hey, I'm going to Italy, and I'm like, dude, me too, and I've been to Italy, and then it comes across in my mind, I'm like, I'm connecting with you, but potentially the recipient is thinking, dude, I had a story about Italy, and I just got upstaged. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And typically those are really good conversations, but you don't end up getting to know deep down what is actually behind it. And I think that's why just making sure that you're asking open-ended questions, truly getting to know people, is listening to understand.
Have you always been like that? I mean, I've known you, Anthony, for a few years now, and I'll quickly let our listeners and viewers know. I brought you up as a volunteer, a voluntold. I mean, I had an idea that I was bringing up someone insanely competent, but I brought you up for we were doing a sample game on session, and right away you just shined. But going back, because I've known you as a high performer, but even when you were younger, let's say Western New York, or was Western Pennsylvania, Western New York?
Western New York.
Western New York, yeah. Western New York back in the day, I'm like, say maybe 12, 13, 14. Were you always driven to be kind of a learner and inquisitive and curious?
Oh, absolutely. I've always pursued knowledge and just understanding and just wanting to get to know people. That's deep who I am. But the issue is passionate people can get excited, and it's very easy to listen to respond.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And there's nothing bad about that. It's like you're engaged in the conversation. You want to know more. You get excited, but it's like having that discipline and being able to just say, I have something to say, but I need to listen so I can get to know him in a way that is going to develop the relationship for a long term, not just share what I want to get off my plate.
Did you have a mentor? Did someone guide you? Parents, coaches? Was it a combination of things?
Yeah, so I've had multiple mentors in my life, but the one that sticks out to me the most is my high school baseball coach. And I text him periodically and just tell him how much impact he's had in my life.
By the way, doing that is so key.
Yeah.
I want everyone to know a thank you note helps, a call helps. That's what these coaches live off of sometimes as they get older and they hear from an Anthony Baldo, who's now doing well. I love that you do that. So tell me a little bit more about that coach.
Yeah, so he was my baseball coach when I was in my early teens all the way through high school. And he found me at a point in my life where I needed discipline. And he absolutely instilled that. But he did it in such a constructive and positive way. He brought the best out in me. And, I ended up being a captain on his team multiple years. He entrusted me. He confided in me. But I looked up to him a ton, and he's still somebody that I deeply respect. And I think when I think about him, Coach Ruggs, I'll share this with you later. But
shout out.
I absolutely, he changed the trajectory of my life in the way that I created discipline in my life. And it's carried over, not just from athletics, but to respecting people and to, in the workplace. I think, discipline is one of the greatest attributes to high performers.
100% agree. By the way, it's so funny. I've been telling my kids, stop saying 100%, 100%. And I just said it on the podcast. To me, discipline is about being intentional. And in your business too, as you guide people to make good choices, it's pretty important for you to not be perfect, but for you to be practicing what you're teaching.
Yeah, there's no crystal ball.
No.
Investing is challenging, but discipline is the number one thing to have success.
Yeah.
You will have vastly different success rates if you don't have the behavioral discipline it takes to stay invested when it's hard. And I tell people, my goal is to make sure that you are invested for the long run, and you do it in a way where you're not losing sleep at night. Because if you get to that point, you're likely going to exit at the worst possible time.
Because you're fear-based, or you're anxious, right? Or you're stressed, you're under duress.
Yeah. The families I work with, fear is typically a choice. When they take risk, their risk is a choice. They don't necessarily have to take risk in their portfolios to achieve success.
Got it.
So if they get to a point where they're losing sleep over it, it's just not worth it.
Yeah. I know it's laugh with, but I'm going to go down a road a little bit. When Anthony, you and I were kind of talking through before we started rolling, I said, let's maybe go somewhere that naturally gets exposed. This is interesting to me. So I'm going to tee this up by telling you, I'm going to lean into your love of sports, your love of coaching, and your love of helping people make healthy decisions. How are you feeling I'm going to throw a curveball. How are you feeling about how this sort of gambling and gamesmanship is going on in sort of the sports world a little bit? Because I know it's a financial conversation, right? There's a risk involved, and I'm seeing it really come to fruition on a large level with our young athletes now with these apps that they're accessible to. So I know I just tossed you one. Take a breath, but I'm fascinated to hear kind of your take on that and what's driving it.
I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's ruining the sports.
Yeah.
And it's creating a distrust where people aren't sure if there's outside forces impacting results.
I don't know how you regulate it. I don't know how you monitor it,
Growing up, I used to watch ESPN every morning. I'd watch sports highlights. You can't go 15 seconds without some sort of prediction, some sort of over-under bet. And it's completely changed the dynamics of how sports are played, I think, to some degree. And then you start to see some outcomes towards the end of games, and you're like, why would you do that? And then you look at the spreads, and you're like, I don't know that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but this is kind of weird.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's probably not happening as much as we think, but when you look for it, you see these numbers and you see the over and you see the under, and it's right there, and all of those things, you have to scratch your head. When you're working with your clients, do you see sometimes that same dopamine, that same serotonin rush when you're dealing with money and investing? And how do you not tell people to stop or start, but how do you encourage them to make healthy decisions?
The closest parallel to that in investing is probably people day trading,
trying
to time markets. Thinking. You can typically, at times you can time the market once, but it's really hard to time it twice. And if somebody has that appetite, I try to parcel off a portion of wealth that is really unconsequential to their total balance sheet. It might be 1% to 3% and allow them to play.
I was just about to say, go play. Yeah.
Yeah. If that allows them to have the satisfaction, have that comfort, and allow the remainder of their portfolio to stay put, then that's fine. Because 1% to 3% is typically going to be, if it hits a home run or a grand slam, it's a story you'll tell at a cocktail party. And if it goes to zero, it's not going to change your life.
Good. I think that's really good counsel to set aside that play dynamic, but at the same time, you said it has to be something that they could be willing to lose, inconsequential.
For sure.
Yeah, just the dopamine release, the serotonin, the chase can be. We're all vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody wants the NVIDIAs, but they don't want the Kodaks. But you're going to inevitably have one of those.
Break that down a little bit, because I have a feeling I know where you're going with this, but let's talk about those two examples and what those really mean in terms of being on one side of the ledger and the other side of the ledger. So,
yeah, I mean, you hear stories of incredible wealth being built in many different ways.
Right.
But you have the people that bought into Apple in the early 2000s. You have the Microsofts, the Googles. But those are the stories that are told. But because nobody wants to talk about how they put money into something and it went to zero.
Well, there's two things. One is, no one's going to go to a party and be like, I just want to share my failure.
Yeah.
Or I want to tell you about this long, slow play that I've done for 40 years that's been successful. It's just not a good headline. It doesn't go viral.
Yeah.
Wow. But when you talk about this Kodak example, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so Kodak's near and dear to my heart because it's from my hometown.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Nice.
Yeah, so at one point there were 60,000 people who were employed within my hometown. And it was a stimulant of the economy because once a year they'd pay these large bonuses, and families were impacted to their benefit by working there and having these great benefits. Well, they developed the digital photography and then they bet against their own success, and they kept the patent, so they ended up having still a little bit of sustainability beyond that. But they went in a different direction, and it impacted them virtually to make them into a company that really is no longer relevant. And tying it back to the families I work with, typically something extraordinary has happened in their life, and it's usually built upon some sort of concentrated asset, going massive, whether it's somebody's small business, it's an equity position that turned into, an outsized position. So I also have, this thing where it's diversification or concentration builds wealth, but diversification helps you keep it.
Got it. Because you're hedging your bet.
Yeah.
I don't mean to make it a cliche.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find with some of your clients, there's a pattern around failures before their success? So I'm sure there's a whole variety of storylines. You might have people that just have generational wealth and they've been good stewards of their money. But do you see any patterns where like there's folks that have done incredibly well, but prior to that there was a big miss and they learned from that?
Yeah, see that I love that you actually said that. They've failed 3 times before most people have even taken a chance.
I stop you for a second just to like acknowledge that, because I think in general, whether it's in business, whether it's leadership, public speaking, people only see the wins.
Yeah.
And so they think that everyone's winning. And so go with that a little bit. Again, you don't have to give examples specific, but you see a pattern of almost like 3 failures to every win.
Well, I have such an incredible lens of the families I work with. They're all very different than each other, but they have some common denominators. The common denominator really is that they're willing to move when they don't have all the answers to the questions.
Faith.
Yeah. So they're looking at their life, they're looking at their experiences, they're looking at their wisdom and saying, I've never dealt with this, but I have experience with this, and here's how it ended up. So I'm going to take a chance here without all the answers to the questions. And I may be wrong, but I'd rather fail forward than not do anything at all.
Yeah, that'll preach, but that absolutely resonates outside of just the wealth management industry.
Yeah, there's a first mover's advantage in life.
Yeah.
And even if you're wrong, it helps you learn, you get exposed to things that you might not have. And that's really what we see. People are willing to take that first step with uncertainty in their life, and typically they're rewarded in such a significant way. I will caveat to say that the people that took that chance and it did not work out, I'm not working with them per se, but that typically you do see failures, and then they find something that has led to their success.
Yeah. So how much, Anthony, are you like consuming articles and information, and actually what platform are you using? Are you reading? Are you on the internet kind of finding trends? And I'm going to give you a double question because I know you can handle it. Is there a specific kind of industry or industries that really excite you and you have kind of an expertise? Because it's hard to be a master of everything out there.
Yeah, I consume a lot of content. I'm an early riser.
I know you are.
I wake up between 4:30 and 5 every morning. And it is my moment of peace. It is quiet. It allows me to get my mind right. And I read, and I'll look at Bloomberg, I'll look at Wall Street Journal. I'll try to get different opinions, because just like any other news that's out there right now, you can look at 2 different places and get 2 completely different opinions of what is actually happening. And we're seeing that with politics to a degree. And it's like, maybe neither one are actually true, and it's somewhere in between. And you have to also realize that all of these places are selling advertisements.
Yes.
So they need you to click, and they need to have interesting headlines. And like, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for the families I work with? How can I be a better steward, guide, or advisor to them when they're reading the same content? And then being able to formulate my own opinion, because if they wanted to just read, they could do that too.
Yeah.
I mean, you could toss these articles in artificial intelligence right now, get a synopsis in 2 minutes, and then, but really what they're coming to me for is advice, counsel, like making sure that they're going to be okay with the news that is being presented in front of them.
Is it fair to say you're in a position where you have some objectivity and they are leaning on your discernment?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if
every
you're
day
close to the painting, if I'm dealing with my wife and we're figuring out our decisions to have an objective, to have a second opinion, to have an objectivity, to have discernment, is really invaluable. With that, do you and your wife have someone else that advises you on your financial wealth? Or as does a dentist do their own procedure on their teeth, if you will?
So I handle all of our finances.
That's responsibility.
100% in-house.
Is that pretty common, or do you have some peers of yours who will have outside counsel?
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I'm really busy. So at times, if there are moves in the markets that need to be capitalized on, I can call on a team to help me.
Yeah.
But it's really being driven by my background, my desires of what I want to accomplish. Yeah. And I love it. I'm a nerd with it.
Well, you're so passionate about what you do.
Yeah. 90% of it is behavioral finance and 10% is actually financial management, though.
Is there an industry that really fires you up? And I say industry, like an area of investment. We're not going to sit here and be like, tell me about crypto. But what I mean by that is there's sort of a space that really is intriguing to you, that you kind of keep seeing yourself going back to with regards to reading, consuming, and information.
I think private investments are the most fascinating vehicle. And you're starting to see less and less companies go public, and more companies are staying private. But we're also in this shift where the baby boomer generation have these businesses that they either are going to pass to their children or they're going to sell. But a lot of the long-standing businesses that are 30, 40 years, they're not in those sexy industries. They're HVAC, they're plumbers, they're electricians, and their kids don't want anything to do with them. So we're seeing private equity come in and actually buy these businesses. And it's an evolution of the way that things were done in the past, because typically people would have their kids come in and run the companies. But we're not necessarily seeing that at such a scale. And because there is such a mass amount of the baby boomer generation that is getting ready to retire, they have to do something with these companies. And the private spectrum is really getting bigger and more interesting.
So interesting. So kind of as we kind of bring the plane back down, I could fly with you for a long time, brother. When you go to social events, I think of my buddy who's a general contractor, and he goes to social events, and it's like, how does he avoid someone going, hey, can you take a look at our pergola outside? And a doctor who comes to a social event, and hey, do you mind if you just look at this cut on my arm? When you're at social events, how do you move out of having conversations just around finance? Because I'm sure you get your brain picked, right?
All the time.
Yeah. And we did this a little bit on the podcast, but we're also trying to connect it back to just leadership and communication and connection. But how do you move out of those conversations respectfully? Because I know you're going to be gracious and give mercy.
Yeah. So it's actually not that difficult. Every financial conversation is so personal, and it really isn't the time or place to be able to have that conversation. And I go out of my way to help people regardless of whether there's something in return for me. Like I always set the framework that I will try to help people even when there's absolutely nothing in return. And
Who instilled that in you, Anthony? Because you've been, since I've known you, you have been so selfless, so supportive. You are an ally, you campaign, and you're an ambassador for a lot of people in our region. Again, we talked about your former coach. You talked about growing up, what sounds like a real supportive family. Where did you get that?
I don't know. Over the course of time, kindness wins. And treat people well, help them with no expectation in return, and the world rewards good behavior. It seems so simple, but in theory, everybody's living in this world of busyness, and sometimes you just have to slow down and give people the time that they need and help them along their way, and great things will come back.
I appreciate what you said so much. So many of your lessons are really practical and just tangible. Kindness wins. I think about movies that depict your industry, and I don't mean to be so stereotypical, but it's not the title of those movies are not Kindness Wins, right?
You're thinking The Wolf of Wall Street?
100%. And listen, we always do. It's exciting. It's fun. But you have this transaction stuff. You have these coffees for closers, right? You have these terms that you use. And I appreciate you and so many of my friends in this industry where That's not really the norm. That's what makes a headline. That's what makes a movie interesting. But you're not going to have a movie about money that's called Be Respectful and Kindness Wins, and most people just want to be okay. But that's really what you laid out in this entire conversation.
Yeah. And not all people will treat it that way, which is why there's varying levels of success. And there's a reason why, people are earning for that and looking for that. They just haven't necessarily found that. And sometimes it's really, as your life changes, as your balance sheet changes, your need for advisors change too. Like you can outgrow your accountant, you can outgrow your attorney, you can outgrow your financial advisor. And, that's why I love what I do is like I work on a platform that can't be outgrown, and I'm able to, bring advice and counsel with my expertise, with my firm's background.
Last note, and it's a tee up for you. You came up and did improv with me when we first met, remember?
Yeah.
And one of the things that was really clear to me is that you had done, obviously you had worked out and you take care of yourself, but that was an easy read. That's not like a gift of knowledge for me to say, hey, you're an athlete and you take care of yourself. But you remember that I actually pointed out, do you remember where I'm going with this? That you did breath work.
Oh yeah.
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 And I find it interesting now that I know you well and I've worked with you and we're peers. Tell me about like that decision because I think it makes complete sense as a wealth manager to take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of your spiritual wellness, but also tell me about the breath work.
Yeah. So taking care of my body is something that I'm passionate about. I believe it's showing your self-respect and respecting your body. And, when I'm working with families, like I think that they respect the fact that I respect my own well-being.
Mm-hmm. You also make better decisions, I think, when we're resting well, we're eating well, we're consuming well, and we're moving well. I mean, that doesn't have to take a rocket scientist to break that down.
I've struggled with back pain for a long time. And, I think we were talking about this with Aaron outside, but the ability to stretch and do yoga is just has been a foundation of that. So I practiced yoga for years, and I think that's really where the learn of being able to breathe through. And inherently, I've had platforms where I've spoken in front of lots of people. I still get nervous.
So do I.
And I think it's because I care, but
yeah.
I have to breathe through that every single time.
Yeah.
And if I'm able to breathe through that and just slow down, typically things work out just fine.
So good. I mean, you kind of did it, but I'll put you on the spot one last time and then we'll land the plane is, what would you say to an emerging leader? I was telling you earlier, I don't consider you an emerging leader. You are a leader. I just happen to be a little older than you. But what would you say for an emerging leader, whether it's in the wealth management industry, the leadership industry, public speaking industry, whatever it may be, that they could focus on to continue to take care of themselves?
I would say that you have to show people that you care. If you are unable to portray that, it doesn't matter how much you know. People don't care. Like they just want to know that they're going to be okay. And that's where I started. Mm-hmm. But if you are the most knowledgeable person in the room, but nobody wants to be in that room with you, that does you nothing.
That's so good. And people will show their care in different ways, right? Yeah. Not everyone's a friendly high five hugger. That's okay. But just to show some way that you care. Care could mean showing up on time.
Yeah.
Or early. Care could mean remembering someone's birthday.
There's a level of knowledge too that shows that you care. Mm-hmm. So you have to be well read. You have to be able to control a conversation. You have to be able to show confidence that you are competent. And I never want to, I never want to think through like confidence does not necessarily mean competence. And those two things are very different.
Yeah.
But I do think there's something to be said for being confident in a room to be able to showcase that competence.
So good, brother. I could go on and on with you, man. I so am thankful for the way you supported Game On. supported me. You're wildly confident and you're wildly humble, which is really fascinating. The fact that you signed up to take Leadership Academy, even like I said, after a few reps and a few certifications, you could have taught it.
I had so much fun with that. The joy and laughter that brought me was something I'll never forget. And I'm your biggest advocate. I love this company. I love what you do. Aww. You're a light in the community, and it's appreciated.
Thanks, brother. And right back at you. We're going encourager for encourager right now. The fact that you sat in the front row every single session for 6 sessions, also something I will never forget, because that's ways to show care. Care does not have to just be cheerlead, high five. It doesn't have to just be getting the neighborhood kids together to play quarterback while you're playing quarterback, even though you did. It could just be positioning yourself in the room, and when I need feedback, you would start, and then the rest of the room would go, wow, Anthony Baldo just gave some feedback. I guess I can too. So that's true leadership, brother. Man, I'd run through a wall for you. Hey, that's Laugh with Anthony Baldo. And this is Steve Shenbaum and Anthony signing off. Check out the podcast where podcasts can be checked out at the links up and over there and down below. And brother, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Yep. That's it. Game on. Let's go.